Hello, my name is Alex Magana. I'm on the server virtualization team in Richardson, Texas, and today I'm going to show you how to configure iSCSI boot from SAN. The configuration covers two parts, the initiator side and the target side. The initiator side will be in UCS, in which we'll create, in the SAN tab, IQN Pools, in the LAN tab, VLANs, IP pools, a QoS policy, vNIC templates, and a LAN Connectivity Policy, and finally in the server tab, a vNIC placement policy, our boot policy, and the template, of course, where we will set the boot parameters. On the target side, we're going to enable the iSCSI feature and then create our iSCSI virtual disk. So let's get started. First, we're going to create our IQN pool. We'll call this one iSCSI A. Now the prefix does have specific syntax, but really you can create whatever you want, for the initiator side at least. The target side will be generated automatically. One requirement I can think of is that the prefix and the suffix both have to be all lowercase. So for the A side, I'll go ahead and give this one fabric A, starting from 0, and we'll give it a size of 10. And we'll do the same for the B side. B for the B side, and same size. We're also going to create a general IQN pool. Consider it your dub NN instead of your dub PNs, which are your A and B. Because it's neutral, we'll go ahead and just call it fabric. And we'll give it a size of 5 because we're not going to make as many. Okay, so that's all we're going to configure in the SAN tab, so let's go ahead and move over to the LAN tab. First thing we're going to do is create our iSCSI VLANs. We're going to have two. You can create an iSCSI boot using one VLAN, however, you need two for multicasting in ESXi. So I'm going to name my VLANs the same. And I already chose VLAN 60 and 70 for A and B. So you can now see my VLANs under A and under B. Next, we're going to scroll down to the bottom and create two IP pools. Gonna be boring and follow the same pattern. Cool, let's create a QoS policy. Now this is optional, but I'm doing it just because it is good practice. So we're going to set our gold and our MTU to 9000. Then under my suborg, I'm going to create a new QoS policy. going to call it surprise iSCSI. We're going to set it to gold, and that's all we do. Next, we're going to create a couple of vNIC templates. We want to make this an updating template, it's always better. And then we need to set our iSCSI VLAN as a native. We'll set our MTU to 9000. We're going to set our MAC pool to our A-side max. We could create a separate MAC pool for iSCSI vNICs, but I did not in this case. And we're also going to set our QoS policy. Do the same for the B side. And the last thing we're going to do in the LAN tab is create our LAN Connectivity Policy. I already have a couple vNIC templates created for my data vNICs, so I'll just go ahead and add those first. Now I'll go ahead and add my iSCSI vNIC templates. Now we need to add what's called iSCSI vNICs. These are overlay vNICs. These vNICs will overlay our iSCSI vNICs. So we'll set the overlay vNIC to the first one, which is on the A side. We don't need to set an iSCSI adapter policy, but we do need to make sure that the VLAN is on our iSCSI VLAN, and we also leave the MAC address blank. So that's all for the LAN tab. Now we can move on to the server tab and create our vNIC placement policy. The reason for the placement policy is to ensure that the iSCSI vNICs are placed last. This makes sure that they're not selected for the VM kernel. When that happens, you'd have your management and your storage networks mixed, and the only way to fix it is to reinstall ESXi. So we'll name this iSCSI, and all we'll do is make the virtual slot 1 assigned only. And last but not least, we need to create our boot policy. I'll go ahead and leave enforce vNIC iSCSI name checked. That means we do have to name it exactly the same as we did our vNIC. We'll add an iSCSI boot under iSCSI vNICs. And we'll add a second one. And that's it. Now we're ready to create our template. We'll make it an updating template. We'll use our connectivity policy and our general IQN pool. We're not going to have any VHPAs, and we don't need to do any zoning. So here we'll go ahead and add our vNICs in the order that we want them in, which is iSCSI vNICs last. No vMedia policy necessary, and let's check our iSCSI boot policy. So let's go ahead and set iSCSI boot parameters. We can ignore our authentication profile, and we'll set our initiator name to iSCSI A. And we'll set our IP pool to iSCSI A. Now we'll set our target information. So what we need to fill is the iSCSI target name, which is the IQN of the target, and we also need the IP. So where do we get this information? Well, let's go ahead and look at our target. So this is my iSCSI target. I created it as a VM on another host. So the first thing you need to do is enable iSCSI. I have it already enabled, but if you don't have it enabled, you have two options. You can click Manage, Add Roles and Features, click Next, 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 and then under File and Storage Services, File and iSCSI Services, make sure iSCSI Target Server is checked, and then you hit Install. You can also install iSCSI using the PowerShell, typing this command here. Add Windows feature fs iSCSI Target Server. Because I added this, there is no change needed. So let's go ahead and create a virtual disk. We'll just click Next. We'll enter the name of our virtual disk. We can call it whatever we want. We'll enter the size that we want our partition to be. So 15 is more than enough for ESXi. And I'm going to go ahead and use fixed size. From what I've read online, it's always better to use fixed size. Dynamic expanding can lead to performance issues, and differencing should never be used as it has a tendency to corrupt data. Generally, it's only used when using a VDI, when you don't care when data gets corrupted. So I have two practice targets. We'll go ahead and ignore those, and we're going to create a couple new ones. And we do have some saved in our cache, so we can go ahead and select what we've already created. Or you can enter the IQN here. You can also use the DNS name, IP address, or MAC address. It's easier just to select what's already in cache. Add our B side as well. We can ignore authentication. And that's it, create. So you'll want to make sure this is 100% clearing before you attempt to boot from this partition, but otherwise we're good to go. So this is the IQN we need to enter in our configuration. So you go to Properties, we'll copy this IQN, and then we'll paste it. As for the IP, well, that's pretty easy to determine. We can go ahead and just do an IP config. I already know that my IP is .40, but just to confirm, 172.16.39.40. And of course, make sure you have general connectivity to the network before you attempt to use iSCSI, otherwise you're going to have a bad time. So we'll just ping our gateway, and we have general connectivity. We can leave our LAN at 0, which is the boot LAN. So that's all we need to do for the A side. Now let's do our B side. And we can paste the same target information. That's it. We don't need a maintenance policy. We can assign later. And we can leave everything else by defaults. So we're done. So we've officially created our boot from SAN iSCSI template. So what we'll do is we'll create a service profile from our template. Now we can review our template. So here are our vNICs, our data in our iSCSI vNICs. You can see our overlay vNICs, and finally our boot order with our boot parameters set. Here we can see our IQN, our IP, and then we have our target information. So the last thing to do is just associate a service profile, and hopefully, if we did everything correctly, we'll be error-free. And we did it. This has been iSCSI Boot from SAN. I'm Alex. Thanks for watching.